a golden in a gown.
Was that the old chair?
That was the old chair, yeah, right there. Just a little studio upgrade.
Well, you're not supposed to change horses in the middle of the stream, is what they say.
Oh, really? Oh, well, we're all right, man.
It's okay.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming again, Bevis. Last time we talked about kind of the end of your musical journey in Austin, and really what I want to focus on today is what you're doing today. So we'll just get right into it, starting with Deux Voix. You've got Deux Voix Limited, you've got Deux Voix Apex Creative, you got Deux Voix Apex Solutions. So what is that?
Well, it's nice to be here as always, Stephen, and I feel like home away from home by now. It's great environment.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for the beautiful poster that you resuscitated and framed so beautifully. I really am touched by that. That's amazing. Skyscrapers, 1979, Continental Club.
We'll share this, but I was at what's it called up there on Burn It? I just sent it to you. Out of the Past Collectibles, and I'm looking at this book of posters, and they've got 4 or 5 books of posters, and all from the Austin music scene. And I'm telling my wife, man, it'd be great to find something with Bevis. And the S in Bevis left my mouth, and I flipped the page to the last page of the first book, and I see the Skyscrapers, a mint condition 1978 Continental Club poster. Pretty unbelievable, man. Pretty unbelievable. But yeah, so thank you, and I'm happy that's going to find a good place in your home. So
God sees everything. That's beautiful.
Yes, he does. Yes,
well,
he does.
Going back to Deux Voix, there was a contemporary band that I always enjoyed camaraderie with back in the early 70s called the Werewolves out of Dallas. They were one of the seminal, what I call glam rock acts in Texas. And they were powerful. Contemporaries of early ZZ Top and the band Cracker Jack that I've mentioned so many times with Tommy Shannon, Stevie Ray Vaughan, and others, right? So the Werewolves were basically, like, in my opinion, probably the most dynamic rock band in Dallas at that time. So when their debut album came out, they had this one song in their song cycle called Deux Voix, which is French for two voices. And what the song focuses on is like the duality in your normal psyche, right? The whole idea of right and wrong, the whole idea of should I do this, should I do that? Just the idea of navigating forks in the road with your life, right? I personally just love the way the word looked on print, right? Because, I'm like, what is ducks fox? Like, what is that?
Yeah.
Right? So anyway, I was friends with the band, and the singer, Brian Papageorge, described to me like really what the subject matter was based on, and it stuck, right? The idea of just having two voices that you're constantly navigating. As a kid, you used to watch these cartoons where there'd be like the character, whether it was Bugs Bunny or Donald Duck or whatever, and there'd be like a little devil and a little angel on the shoulder,
Oh, yeah.
trying to navigate the situation. And that's what Deux Voix is all about. So how it came into focus, I basically made a determination to retire from performing and touring as I was approaching the age of 55, so to speak, right? I may have mentioned before, I feel like Austin is very benign to like senior musicians. You can carve out a little niche of a music career, irrespective of having, international recognition or even major label support, because Austin just has so many venues, and the pace and tempo of Austin is so colloquial, right? So I was just hitting that vector to where, okay, I'm crossing over into being a bona fide senior citizen, right? Like I'm past 50, staring down the barrel at 60, and the question pops into my head, where do you want to be in 10 years?
It's a great question anybody at any age should ask themselves.
I was literally in the Continental Club when the question came up in my head.
Of course you were.
And I said, well, I don't want to be in this club hoping I can get a gig in 10 years. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be in a position of need is what I was aspiring to, right? So I basically played my last show at the Continental Club on my birthday, April the 26th, 2015. And it was kind of more of a retrospective attitude about it. I was doing a lot of cover material in a long set, you know, with another unit that had a lot of musical versatility involved. And the long and short of it, I was just kind of spanning the oeuvre of artists that had influenced me, you know, up to that point. So it ran the whole gamut from like Rolling Stones to Sly Stone to Jimi Hendrix to Led Zeppelin on up to whatever, Peter Gabriel, you know, just cherry picking, almost like a karaoke type thing, except it was organic. And that was going to be like my swan song, right? So having done that, I started thinking along the lines of how I could optimize the vast array of musical connections that I had acquired over the course of, 40 years.
Right. Yeah.
Right. Which is significant. And I really started to drill down on the fact that every spring approaching South by Southwest, my phone would start blowing up. People from different parts of the country just calling me for insight or advice or perspective on venues or, other acts or this, that, and the other thing, And I've always kind of had this kind of knack for like connectivity, like this person should know that person should talk to this person, you know what I'm saying? And I've always loved being like a catalyst. So, as I said before, South by Southwest started to amplify, and I just started to notice this trend. Voice in the back of my mind came up and said, you could actually work as a consultant. You theoretically should get paid for this, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But then you get into the reality of you're working with musicians, and musicians are usually scrambling for money. They're usually always a day late and $1 short with money. And it's always like, well, how do you get blood out of a turnip? So to fast forward, what I did was I decided that because at that time, this was at the beginning of the whole controversy about Napster, where Napster had started to come into focus and people had started streaming torrents.
Right.
This is before iTunes, before Spotify, before any of that thing. Kids had just figured out that there was links out there that could get you free music, and the record company was hemorrhaging blood and money trying to figure out how can we get in on this action, because these streaming kids are bleeding us dry, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So the handwriting was on the wall. Now, me having access to like insiders, I was talking to people, that were working at labels. I had a lot of friends working in A&R or working in promotions or working in development for that matter. And every time that I made an aspiration to maybe get a deal for myself or some sort of leverage, with the label, I would always get some sort of spiel about the business perspective, like what the label was thinking, or if they didn't give me X, why they were only willing to give me the consolation of Y. You know what I mean? Like, so I had gotten comfortable with the so-called protocol, right? Without being a so-called A&R person. Secretly, that's probably what I really, really should have put my impetus on. But being in Austin, there still wasn't any label infrastructure here. So by now, I'm married and I have a condo and I've got responsibilities, and I'm not just taking random flights of fancy, you know, to experiment and crash and burn because I've got a mortgage that I've got to, you know, be responsible for along with the well-being of my wife's mental health, so to speak. I wasn't trying to take her into uncharted territory and bring stress into her life because I had a bright idea.
Yeah.
Right. So the pragmatic thing, because I am a Taurus and I am a very pragmatic person, right? Like I literally just, you know, put one foot in front of the other and make sure that the ground is solid, and then I'll take another step. I'm just not out there trying to, you know, set the world on fire without a plan, you know? So I've always been cognizant of like reading Billboard magazine or Cashbox or whatever resources to like insider industry information, because it was always relevant to me. I mean, there were some musicians that really couldn't care less about that side of the industry.
Yeah, but that was your curiosity, so it just kind of flowed perfectly into
I've
what you were
always
doing.
been interested in it. You know what I'm saying? I was always interested in, you know, what managers did, how they thought.
Yeah, reading the back of LPs and everything.
All of that.
All of that we talked
saying?
about.
And the correlation of those things. And having exposure firsthand to the foibles of bad management, right?
Yeah. Yes, you did.
I literally learned that part of the business through the School of Hard Knocks.
Yes.
You feel me?
And there's probably no better way to learn it, unfortunately.
There's literally only one way to learn it.
Yeah.
And that is you got to get in there and go with and roll with the punches, as they say, right?
Yeah.
So again, now I'm a mature adult, right? It's like clown time is over. And, you know, I'm setting proclivities of like recreational drug experimentation and excessive alcohol, all that's in the back, in the rear view. You know what I mean? So, because I'm just trying to think about, okay, well, I got to get to 65. Like that's my goal.
Yeah.
That's my personal goal, right? The way I started thinking about it was when I noticed that the labels were panicking about Napster, one of the first things that they did as a reaction to that was they started to dissolve their development budgets. Basically, they weren't rolling the dice on new acts to kind of build up their fan bases gradually over time, the way traditionally they always had done.
I see.
That was the whole point of having a record deal when you were in the 60s or 70s or even the early 90s for that matter. A record deal meant that you basically had a financier, somebody to set you up with, you know, a publicity team, which is extremely expensive. Somebody to set you up with a production team, which is extremely expensive. Somebody to bankroll your touring initiatives, which is extremely expensive, right? Like you need a crew, right? If you're going to compete with, you know, headliners as an opening act.
Absolutely.
You can't go in there, you know, with club level presentation, right? You got to go in there smoking, and you got to have a back line, and you got to have a crew, and you got to have guys that know what they're doing in real time and space, because you've only got somewhere between 35 and 45 minutes to make an impression. And you're only as good as the audience responds to you. And if you're not creating some sort of wave of intrigue to get people into the venue early, what's the point of you being an opening act for a headliner, right? They can just say, well, this will just be an evening of U2, and we don't need a headliner. You know what I'm saying? And my point being is that you look at all these models, right? So the labels decided if we withdraw these huge development budgets from our bottom line, right? This may keep us afloat, and we could put that investment into tech.
I see.
Okay? Which is exactly what happened.
Right.
So now you've got a vacuum that I could step into as a development consultant.
Okay.
In a city like Austin.
Yeah.
With an event like South by Southwest Perennial. Everybody wants to play South by Southwest for free.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's just
in most cases, right? And as the groundswell continues and the momentum continues to build, right? Take that in conjunction with the fact that the tech side of South by Southwest also started to amplify. And then the film side of South by Southwest really started to amplify. So now it's a situation where it's like legit in contention with like Sundance Film Festival,
Yeah.
right?
Oh yeah.
So everything that's happening in Austin now is legit big time. When you got Metallica playing gigs at Stubbs,
Yeah.
or Bob Dylan playing showcase, or playing gigs at Stubbs,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Oh yeah.
It's a new landscape. So I say all that to say, with the groundswell of aspiring talent in Austin, right? I could easily see where I could find a niche as a development consultant for artists that are trying to bridge the gap between being big in the club to maybe getting to a position of either getting a label deal or getting with a major booking agent that would get them further afield in the touring circuits. Because I had enough connections to kind of, pull some strings, so to speak,
Right.
if the act was tight. And so it's not that different than, let's say, being a boxing coach, right? Like becoming like a corner man
I see.
for a boxer, right?
Yeah.
And once you have a reputation of working with one successful boxer, then other aspiring boxers start looking at you like legitimately,
Right.
right? So in my case, I cut my teeth on a group called Saturday's Radar. They were popular on the scene for, I would say, the better part of maybe 2015, I really like I really like the principal songwriter, a young guy named Jamie Hill. And I met him while I was working in a tape replication organization, a company called Sound Recorders. I worked in a small plant that made mass copies of cassette tapes
Interesting.
and CDs as they started to come into vogue, so to speak, for like local artists having like short runs.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. Oh, that's cool. Based in Austin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I was literally producing like mass production of cassettes for artists and so on and so forth. So I'm hearing everything that's floating in the zeitgeist
Yeah.
is coming through sound recorders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You know
Wow,
what I
that's
mean?
that's a good way to keep your foot on the or keep your finger on the local talent.
Yeah,
Wow.
because I'm hearing it before the radio stations.
Yeah.
If you know what I'm talking.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right. So anyway,
Cool.
this guy Jamie Hill and I became friendly, and I thought he had a great look, and the sound was really what I call in sync with the church of what was happening now, right? Which is to say, it was post grunge, right? But it had that grungy edge
Right.
to it, right? The songs were like tight, poppy,
Mm-hmm. I mean, pop punk was
but
big
heavy,
then. Yeah.
but heavy,
Oh, yeah.
And he and I had a relationship as just social relationship as friends. I said, well, okay, well, basically you can pay me X number of dollars a month, like a subscription rate, so to speak, right? Like I'm not trying to break your back, right? But if I'm going to do this, I'm not doing it because we're buddies.
Yeah.
Or just because we're buddies.
Fair enough.
I'll give you an affordable rate because we're buddies. You know what I mean? But this is basically a mutual agreement that we're going to engage, and let's just see how this thing goes. So for all intents and purposes, he was kind of like my lab rat.
Okay.
Saturday's Radar was kind of like my test drive,
Okay.
just to see how far I could get around the bases.
So how many bands do you think you worked with in total?
Well, I've got a website, Deux Voix Ltd, right? And I'm just saying, in terms of chronology, here's the thing. Saturday's Radar had a really great record. And the gap that they had was like management. And I wasn't prepared to undertake that role because I just felt at that point in time, like the internal dynamic of the band wasn't cohesive enough for me to gamble on, right? Like there was just still too much instability in terms of like the personnel, you know, drummers coming and going, bass players coming and going, and just trying to stabilize this thing, you know. But what I did do was get them to the point to where I helped them organize their first release. Like they took the demo all the way to a point to where it was like a commercial product.
Okay.
And I'm talking about I work with them with all the fine print, you know, like hiring Guy Juke, who's like one of the classic artists from the Armadillo era, you know, to coordinate the art direction, you know, for their image and all of these things, contemporizing it in a way to where they had a competitive edge that would stand up against, you know, acts from London or acts from New York or acts from Los Angeles, right? They didn't seem like they were just out of the sticks. You dig what I'm trying to say? Yeah. And so that end result gave me the confidence to just keep going. You know what I'm saying? Like getting them from a conversation to now they've got like a tangible product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And all the matriculations that you have to conduct to get to that point. I've discovered that I had a lot more bandwidth and a lot more patience than the average individual, you know, in negotiating the personal aspect of those things. Because it's one thing when you're doing it for yourself. When you're working with someone else, it's like, you know, you call a plumber comes over to fix that immediate problem, right? But he's not waiting out in the van for the next problem.
Right. Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Exactly.
Now, when you're basically in a contractual agreement with an artist, right? Now you're there, it's like you moved in. Yeah. And all their day-to-day stuff kind of bleeds into your day-to-day stuff, right?
Yeah, I see.
So that's where I kind of drew the so-called imaginary line on getting into like personal management. Because first of all, bands totally misinterpret like what that is, right? You literally have to have an income to garner the services of a personal manager.
Right.
So if you're not already out there in the field, you know, booking gigs, banking gigs, transporting yourself to and from gigs with an itinerary, a manager just looks at a blank sheet of paper going like, I don't see any income, right? Like for all I know, this is just a hobby.
Yeah, right.
You're a so-called weekend warrior, you know? You hop into clubs on Friday and Saturday, and then you're back on your day job Monday, Tuesday through Thursday or whatever. You know what I mean? So to kind of round it up, having done that, it gave me enough personal insight to kind of understand how much I didn't know. This business is heavily predicated on confidence, right? It gets blurry where confidence becomes egomaniacal.
Man.
It becomes disproportionate, you know what I'm saying? Then it gets tricky. But all I'm saying is scared money doesn't make money. So you always have to approach the thing like you're winning.
Yes.
Even when you're not sure whether you're winning or not.
That's tough to do.
But you have to present confidence, is all I'm saying.
That's tough to do with anything in life, really, when you think about it.
And I have always been able to do that.
That's a gift.
I don't step outside the door unless I'm prepared to win. My dad told me, don't go into a gunfight with a knife. You know what I'm saying? Don't let your ass write a check. You know, don't let your mouth write a check that your ass can't cash. Right?
Oh, yeah.
That sort of thing, right? after Saturday's Radar, there was a South by Southwest event where I met the band Death, right?
Mm-hmm.
For those that don't know, they're a three-piece African-American band originating from Detroit that has historically been credited as being like the precursors to the punk rock movement. But they were essentially hidden figures because the one album that they produced was never released in 1975, right? They had an opportunity to sign with CBS Records under the behest of Clive Davis if they would change their name from Death to almost anything else in the phone book. I mean, in the dictionary, you know what I mean? But they had a personal reason for not. And so CBS reneged on the offer. And of course, that downward spiral precipitated, in some mental health challenges for one of the members. And they were siblings. They were three brothers, blood brothers. They lived together. And I don't want to go off on a long tangent about their story because it is pretty intense, but you can find it. There's a documentary film called A Band Called Death. So they had a new release after being basically buried from the public zeitgeist for 30 years. They resurfaced around 2009 with this album, this very same song cycle that Clive Davis had waived.
Right.
And it was released by a label out of Chicago called Drag City, and it became like an international sensation because people were looking at it like the Golden Fleece. Like, this is like before the Stooges. This is before the Ramones. This is way before the Sex Pistols. This is punk rock. This is 1975. And these guys are black. Right? Like, who knew? You know what I mean?
Right.
So they had the good fortune of having this documentary in development when I met them. And they had come to South by Southwest because, as a matter of fact, once they were, let's say, reestablished, the story is so fascinating. Once they were reestablished, the first place that they played was South by Southwest after they were grown men back on stage.
Wow.
The first gig that they
30
played
years
publicly, maybe the second gig as I'm thinking about it. I think the first gig they played was some sort of tribute to Johnny Ramone, right?
But regardless,
at CBGB. But I'm talking about the first, let's say, broad visibility thing that they played was at South by Southwest. As a matter of fact, maybe it wasn't even South by Southwest. It may have been Fun Fest.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Before that thing even blew up. You know what I mean?
Damn.
And as I'm thinking about it. But I met them, and this would have been 2014 when I met them. So if my memory serves me now, I must have retired around 2011 is what I'm thinking, not 2015.
Okay.
Right? Because I was still with these guys in 2015.
I see.
Right? So it would have been Saturday's Radar. Oh, and then there was another gap. Before Saturday's Radar, after Saturday's Radar, I started working with an African musician named Francis Mbappe, who was a colleague of my good friend Will Calhoun from the band Living Color, right? Now, Francis was living in Paris at the time, and he and Will were collaborating on a album together, right? And, Francis basically spoke French as his first language, right? He's from Mali, but he was like a bass phenom, kind of like Bootsy Collins, right?
Yeah.
Now, without going on a long tangent about Francis, the thing that made him most significant to me was that he used to play with Mano Dibango, who was a very, influential Congolese African musician on a huge international scale. He had this song called Soul Makossa. And the reason that that would be relevant to you or people in America is when you hear Michael Jackson doing that song, "I Want to Be Starting Something," and it breaks down into that vamp. It goes, "Mama say, Mama sa, Mama Musa, Mama say, Mama sa, Mama Musa." He got that from Soul Makossa.
Oh, all right.
Francis was on that record when he was like 14 years old,
Damn.
playing bass, right? Because like a boom, 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 deep funk, boom, 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 right?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, Will Calhoun is working
it.
with Francis because Will is a genius in his own right. Will is as well known and comfortable in the jazz community as he is in the rock community, right? Like when Living Colour went into a hiatus, I guess it was in 1992, after the release of their third album, they disbanded temporarily, right? They just kind of went into a hiatus. They kind of imploded. Will's next gig was he went straight to Wayne Shorter, who was like a giant in the jazz world. Like Wayne Shorter was like a Miles Davis protege who became like a giant on the same scale as like John Coltrane or Dexter Gordon. And that was Will's gig. That was his pivot from Living Colour.
I see.
You see what I'm saying? Then he went from Wayne Shorter to Pharoah Sanders, who's another jazz giant, and then went from Pharoah Sanders to Jack DeJohnette, who's another jazz giant. You know what I'm saying?
Jumping all over the map.
Yeah, I mean, if there was another career that I would like to piggyback, it would be like Will Calhoun, right? Having said that, Francis is like legit, like the business. Francis had been doing tours with like Sting. You know what I mean? Like he's done tours with like, he's done recording sessions with like Peter Gabriel. You know what I'm saying? Like he's
big time.
If you know, you know. Like he's one of those guys, right? So he was booked to come to South by Southwest. And I was basically booked or took the position of being his advance person.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So I was working with Francis and making the rounds, you know, representing his project. And then I was at one of the seminars where the band Death was being interviewed for like a public Q&A type situation.
Right.
So the person that was moderating that was a friend of mine from the Black Rock Coalition named Rob Fields. And then he set up a private session to interview the band and me, since we were essentially contemporaries of each other that were blind to each other because it's pre-internet and neither one of us released albums in that era.
You were doing the exact same thing.
Exactly. And so I'm literally, you know, maybe a year older than the oldest member of Death, who had passed away before the young siblings revived the band with a new guitar player, right? So anyway, we had this really heart-to-heart, meaningful engagement conversation. And a few weeks later, the band reached back out to me saying, hey, you know, we're thinking about doing X, Y, or Z. Could you help? Like that sort of thing. And I said, well, I think the first thing we should do, because they were telling me more about the documentary. As the documentary was starting to wrap up, they were wanting to create like some sort of touring engagements to support the film. Because the film was going to be making rounds in the so-called cinematic festival circuit, right?
Right.
Sundance, all of them. And there was a big groundswell of interest in it, right? Because it was a really well-made film. So my engagement with them kind of elevated my platform, because now we're talking about, you know, not just live shows, but television.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I managed to help get them booked onto a series where W. Kamau Bell had a series on, I believe it was on FX at that time. It was like a late night talk show. And then eventually Arsenio Hall came back out of hiatus, and Death got a booking on the Arsenio Hall show after he came out of so-called retirement or hiatus. You know what I'm saying? And then the thing that I thought was really kind of fascinating was we got an invitation to join the Riot Fest, Metallica's.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Orion Fest, the Orion Fest through C3 Presents, right? Because they were basically producing that for Metallica up in Detroit,
I see.
right? So that was a great career boost.
Yeah.
If you understand what I'm saying.
I bet.
Yeah, because we get up to Detroit, and of course we get this note like Metallica wants you to join them for dinner, that sort of thing, Because turns out Rob Trujillo was listening to Death as inspiration before he goes to Metallica rehearsals.
Whoa.
Yeah, you know what I mean? He had just seen the film, like the film had just come out.
How was that dinner?
For me, it was just...
Is that one where you just kind of shut up and listen, or are you?
No, man, because I'm not intimidated. I've been around rock stars for my whole life.
Well, it's not an intimidation thing, but I mean,
no, for me, it was just like I just felt happy for the band. Because,
yeah, okay, yeah.
Because for them, it was kind of like giving them a stamp of legitimacy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Put some respect behind their name.
Fluke.
Uh-huh.
You know what I mean? Like as legitimate musicians, right?
Yeah.
Like Metallica likes your music.
Yeah, they're over here splitting bread.
Yeah. So it's not just a fanboy type thing, right? Now, but as far as me being in a room with Metallica, that's like,
well, yeah, I mean,
Tuesday.
your whole career was that, right? Yeah. But I mean,
But my point was the vibe of it was what was really, meaningful to me, right? Because there was so much respect, in place, and so it wasn't like we were having to chase somebody around to get a nod. Well, they came looking for us. They cherry picked Death, to come to that festival.
That right there is a statement in and of itself.
Yeah,
I mean, and I don't. It just from the outside looking in, Lars and James and those guys just seem to really respect music history.
Of course,
and so that's cool.
Yeah, well, yeah, they're Metallica, bro.
Yeah, that's all I gotta say.
So, to put things in a context, right? Meanwhile, I'm working at Macy's at the same time, right? Selling suits and shoes.
Let me
and
file some PTO so I can go eat dinner with Metallica.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to the Riot Fest, right? I gotta negotiate this contract because we get this offer, and I'm going like, well, that's nice, but we need double that. Got to go through that whole machination, with C3 Presents and everything worked out. You know what I'm saying? And then, I take my leave and go up to Detroit for several days. You know what I'm saying? And it's not just Metallica. We're up there with the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and we're up there with, of course, I already knew Flea. I knew Flea from years before that.
Did you really?
Oh, I met Flea in New York City. I found Flea's wallet in a gutter when they were playing a show at the Ritz.
And how'd you get it back to him?
Well, he was a friend of my friend.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, we were all there on their guest list anyway. Yeah. I just found his wallet in the gutter.
Was this what years was this?
Well, this had to be it had to be like 86.
Okay, so Frusciante wasn't the guitarist at the time. Hillel might have been the guitarist.
Hillel Slovik was the guitarist at that time. They had when I hung out with them in Austin, they had just got the new drummer.
Chad.
Chad had just joined the band and
Hillel?
No.
John.
Hillel was dead.
Oh,
Hillel
John
had just died. John Frusciante had just joined. They played at the Austin Opry House. I was with them all day.
So,
and Faith No More was the opening act.
And so, I mean, how is Flea? He just seems like a very authentic human being.
He is that. He's real.
He's a real dude. He seems like a real dude. And
he's real. Those guys are extreme.
Yeah.
I mean, what I mean by that is, each individual is an individual for real.
Yeah.
And it's like the sum is greater than the whole of its parts, or whatever, however that phrase goes. There's a certain musical chemistry that happens with them together, but they're ostensibly they were very dysfunctional, because there were drug problems.
They had drug problems, especially Anthony and
well,
Chili.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It was real. You know what I mean? But you got to understand, like, see, when I was in New York, one of my best friends was romantically associated with Chuck Mosley from Faith No More.
Okay.
Before Faith No More like blew up on MTV, right? He was a black lead singer of Faith No More, and he kind of imploded under a drug crisis. But and my friend Johnny Edwards went to high school with Flea.
Okay.
At Fairfax High in
fair.
LA.
Yeah.
So Johnny introduced me to Flea.
I see.
And they were just high school buddies.
Yeah.
You know,
they're just friends. Yeah.
Before any of the record deal, or before the Red Hot Chili Peppers, before any of that. You know what I mean? So my rapport with all those guys was just grounded. In natural relationship.
Exactly. You took the word right out of my mouth.
And then you also don't want to discount. I look like an amazing rock star.
Well, you were an amazing rock star.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
You know, people will look and be like, damn, you know.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, what's going on?
Well, I don't want to get too far off tangent, but Chili Peppers are one of my favorite bands. I grew up with them, you know. So
I'm just telling you.
Gotta ask.
Yeah, the Uplift Mofo Party Plan was like welded to my CD player when that came out. That was like my favorite record of that year, right? Loved that record to death.
Yeah.
And when they came to Austin to play the Opry House, I was just hanging out. I was literally, and I'm not saying it was fanboy, but I was just in the cut.
You were there.
You know what I mean?
Just hanging out, yeah.
Like I'm
like you did your entire career.
At the sound check.
Yeah.
Side of the stage, front of the stage, whatever. You know what I'm saying? I'm sitting with the lighting people.
You gotta understand this, Bevis. I'm 12 years old on a Friday night in 8th grade, trying to figure out how to learn guitar. The only songs I'm interested in learning are Chili Pepper songs.
Okay.
You know, and so that's why, you know, John Frusciante and Stevie Ray Vaughan are the entire reason why I wanted a 1960s burst Strat.
Okay. I get it.
I mean, you know,
I get it.
That's just what it is for me. So no, that's cool. So I appreciate you letting me pick your brain there a little bit. So going back to Deux Voix.
Okay. So anyway, so as you can see, one thing is leading to another. And with Francis, South by Southwest, I meet Death.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got a report going on, and we have some good outcomes with Death, and their, you know, visibility gets real high. So we fast forward to like 2016, right? I'm in between commitments, so to speak, which is fine. I get a call from Living Color. Hey, man, we're going to be playing down in Uvalde. I'm sorry, down in Hidalgo, Texas, like border town.
Yeah, the Valley loves punk and metal.
What's happening way the hell down there? You know, it's like, oh, we're actually on tour with Aerosmith. Like, what? Now, this is a season where Aerosmith, we're playing like a handful of tertiary markets, like third level markets, because Steven Tyler was in the process of recording a country and western album in Nashville, right? So they weren't in a full bloom of like major markets like New York, LA, Chicago.
Yeah.
They're playing like Boise, Idaho, Hidalgo, Texas, you know, whatever. You know, any place that had a hockey arena or a reasonable size basketball arena.
Yeah.
I guess they could dip in and pick up a couple of $100,000 or whatever. You know what I mean? Because it's Aerosmith.
Yeah. I mean,
they didn't play a smaller show because it was Hidalgo, right? They
still went hard.
It was like the shit, bro. You know what I mean? So my point was, again, this just started innocuously, right? I'm going to hang out with my boys. But just so happened that car is parked out in front of your house.
Mm-hmm.
I was test driving it that weekend.
Oh, okay.
So I had the keys on this, 2011 Hyundai Genesis V8 that does 160. I'm keeping it for the weekend because I'm kind of in love with this car. I'm I really want to take it out on the highway for just a stretch.
Yeah.
Because it got 160 on the speedometer.
Let's go.
I want to just see.
Let's go.
So, you know, once you get south of San Antonio,
that's an open road.
it's a speedway.
Yeah.
Speed traps notwithstanding,
Yeah,
but there's not a lot of them out there, right?
No.
Until you get to the border stops and things like that.
Yeah.
So here we go. So I'm going to hang out with my boys. Right?
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, what are we talking about? Maybe a 3-hour drive from San Antonio to Hidalgo?
Yeah, 3-4 hours.
So I get there, I'm going to spend the night. Then I'm going to hang with them the next day for them to do the load in and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just hanging with my boys. Because ironically, all that time I'd spent with Jack Douglas, this was at a period where Aerosmith had just released that album called Permanent Vacation.
Mm-hmm.
And they were basically in a management situation that prohibited them from socializing with anybody that had previously been in their circle, because they were in rehab. They were like in what I call united sobriety, right? Yeah. So the manager that they had at that time kind of put a firewall around Aerosmith, right? Because while I'm recording at the record plant with Jack Douglas, I'm really wanting like Joe Perry to come by, because I mean they were like in the mix.
Yeah.
Because that album was starting to catch the airwaves. You know, the thing with Ragdoll, Dude Looks Like a Lady, right? That became a big ass record. That record was a big bounce for them. It brought them back into like the mainstream. So, you know, get inside of my head, right? It's like, well, this is my opportunity to just hang with Aerosmith.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm living color with my boys, but literally I'm going to hang with Aerosmith. I'm going to see Aerosmith.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
With a VIP pass, that sort of thing, right? And man, it was just as magical as I thought it would be, right? Because literally the first person that Will introduced me to was Joey Kramer, right? He was like one of my favorite drummers and blah, 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 you know. Turns out Joey Kramer lives in Georgetown.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man. Never would have guessed that.
I had previously met Brad Whitford on one of the Experience Hendrix tours. You know, those events, Experience Hendrix, where they have this whole squadron of like great guitar players, you know. Eric Johnson, you know, just Doyle Bramhall, a whole big
everybody.
A whole big list of people, right? So I had previously met Brad Whitford in one of those settings, you know. We had some nice, candid conversations because I knew Jack Douglas, you know what I'm saying? We just had common ground to talk about. But I had not ever met Steven Tyler before that, you know. So for me, that was a big thrill. That was borderline fanboy. You know what I mean? Because he's one of those people that I had always admired.
Right.
And when I first went into my foray as a lead singer, I literally I told you, I went through a whole thing where I was like doing cover tunes while we were playing like these Air Force bases and stuff all through the Midwest, right? Where I'm kind of cutting my teeth as a front man, right? Yeah. And, you know, my wheelhouse was like the Toys in the Attic album. You know, I knew so many songs, sung so many songs off of that album, and Rocks so many songs off of those two albums, right?
Well, like and you'd also been walking in his footsteps with Jack and the record playing all
well,
that.
There was that parallel.
Yeah.
But by no means was I, you know, I mean, look, it's a funny thing, man. You know, you talk to Mick Jagger and Mick tells you, like, I really love James Brown, right? You could talk to Prince and he'd say, I really love James Brown, or I really love whatever. You know what I'm saying? I mean, every musician has got an index of people that influenced them and that they literally stood in the mirror with hairbrushes imitating, you know, or, you know, pretending to windmill guitars or whatever. You know, every musician has got that what I call that go-to A-list. These are my people.
Of course.
You know what I mean?
That's what drives the passion.
And Stephen was one of my people. You know what I'm saying? Because I just loved his style, his sound, his swag, the whole Steven Tyler experience. I was with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
Now, by now I'm 55 years old, so I'm not tripping. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those things to where I'm the type of person where I've had dreams where I'm talking to a famous person or somebody that I've admired or whatever, and I've had dreams that I was, we're having coffee or whatever we're doing, or we're flying kites or with some ridiculous scenario, right? But we're hanging out.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were in the.
So this was one of those deals because Steve goes like, well, let's have you eaten? That sort of thing, right? And of course they've got like a whole catering situation that's like, filet mignon and,
everything. Everything.
Yeah, it's
you
not
could
fast
think of.
food. Bro.
Yeah,
it's
no.
like the real deal, lobsters and the whole, what I mean?
Of course,
like,
yeah.
It's real.
That rider must have been insane.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it was just he and I just chopping it up because I knew so many people that he knew.
Yeah. You had to have it. You could relate to him very well. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was the thing. And so after that, what was interesting was it was after that we took a photograph and, for the record.
Mm-hmm.
And about a little bit later than that, Vernon Reid kind of motioned over to me like, hey, man, I need to talk to you for a minute. Now, me being me, part of me thought like, well, maybe I'm over the line. Maybe I'm over fraternizing with the headliners or something. And maybe, this is making, maybe
making somebody
I'm
uncomfortable.
thinking maybe I'm about to get reprimanded or something. You know what I mean? Like, because he had this look on his face that was just kind of curious. I was like, what's up, bro? He's like, what would you think about managing the band?
Thanks for listening. Know someone we should talk to? Give us a shout on Instagram at Austin Music People. Tell your friends, tell your family, and get out there and support Austin music.